Welcome to a series called He Trains My Hands for War, where we're going through the book of Joshua verse by verse, because the book of Joshua is by far the best example of what it is, if not the only example, of what it is to be a group of people who put God as the general and engage in warfare, doing everything that he says and having victory after victory after victory, because he holds the universe in the palm of his hands. And this is incredibly important for us to understand, because in the end times, the antichrist and the world army, which the Bible says, who could prevail against them? But yet the remnant sustains and wars against them, and the warring of the saints for 3.5 years, having victory after victory after victory. And God is a never-changing God. He's the same then as he will be in the future. So as we go through this book, it's important we understand it, because it's very different type of warfare than anything we've ever seen. And where we are in this book is Israelites have conquered Jericho, Ai. They got deceived in Gilgal to make a pact with them, which they're dealing with today in this very moment. They're warring against these people that they did not eliminate and have since then. And because of their peace treaty with that country, or with that kingdom, 5 kingdoms come against Israel and Gilgal, the city they made a pact, or the kingdom they made a pact with. And God entraps those people, essentially sends them into a trap where Israel slaughters them. Then God rains down hailstones, and more of them are killed with the hailstone than anything else. And then Joshua, knowing that he had to get all these people, the word of the Lord said, eliminate them all. So he called out for the sun and the moon to stand still, and it did. God manipulated the universe, and it stood still until he was able to defeat his enemies. And where we're at right now is he has entrapped the 5 kings into a cave and continues to pursue his enemies. And we're just going to pick it up right there. Joshua 10, starting verse 20. Then it happened, while Joshua and the children of Israel made an end of slaying them with a very great slaughter, till they had finished, that those who had escaped entered fortified cities. And all the people returned to the camp to Joshua at Maggie in peace. No one moved his tongue against any of the children of Israel. Then Joshua said, open the mouth of the cave and bring out those 5 kings to me from the cave. And they did so, and brought out those 5 kings to him from the cave: the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. So it was, when they brought out those kings to Joshua, that Joshua called for all the men of Israel, and said to the captains of the men of war who went with him, come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings. And they drew near and put their feet on their necks. Then Joshua said to them, do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for the Lord will do to all your enemies against whom you fight. And afterward Joshua struck them and killed them and hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging on the trees until evening. So it was, at the time of the going down of the sun, that Joshua commanded, and they took them down from the trees, cast them into the cave where they had been hidden, and laid large stones against the cave's mouth, which remains until this very day. All right, I'm going to pause there, because what we see here is an incredible thing, that it's a lesson we all need deeply to have. And that's what Joshua showed his captains of his men. These kings, put your feet on their necks. This is what God is giving you. Just really take that in for a second. Like what Joshua showed these men, that your enemies, you're going to stand on their necks. You're going to put your feet on their necks. That when you engage in warfare, God's warfare, this is how it plays out. So when the Antichrist comes with his world army, just know that when they come against the remnant, 144,000 Israelites, combined with a multitude of tribes, nations, and tongues, of Gentiles, that it's about putting your feet on their necks is what God will deliver to you. He says he sustains for 3.5 years. The Bible says, who can prevail against the Antichrist, against the beast? But yet, we do successfully for 3.5 years. That your enemies, you will put your feet on their neck. There is no other way it plays out. God holds the universe in the palm of his hands. And he proved it because once those kings were hung by the tree, he then, for the first time in who knows how long, dozens of hours, hundreds of hours, who knows how long that day actually was. But he kept it light, and he held the universe still. And once those 5 kings were finally dead and hanging in a tree, he then let the sun go down. But before he did that, Joshua showed his captains, this is what happens to kings who go against the army of the living God. When you go against the Lord and his army, you're going to be on the ground, and their feet are going to be on your necks. We're watching this play out with Israel right now. I mean, that's pretty much how it's playing out, is Israel's feet are on the necks of their enemies. And this is how it's going to play out in the end times, when the Antichrist, who will control the entire planet with him and his 9 other kings. But yet, the remnant will literally put their feet on their necks for 3.5 years. And the Bible says that at the end of the 3.5 years, they do prevail against us. Because then that's how the tribulation ultimately ends, is with the destruction of the 2 witnesses. But that's about when Christ comes back. And then we reign with him for 1,000 years, even if we die in that war. The Bible tells us that the first resurrection is only those who died during this tribulation. So those who died during tribulation and those who are alive when Christ returns will literally reign on earth here for 1,000 years. Then the rest of humanity will be resurrected into this glorious kingdom. But this first 1,000 years, it's for warriors and warriors only. Just hear that for a second. Who will reign on earth with Jesus for 1,000 years? Warriors who stood up for the things of Jesus Christ during tribulation and lived, and warriors who stood up for the things of Jesus Christ during tribulation and died. It's referred to as the first resurrection. Look it up. And that's it. Because that entire time, and you're holding your feet on the neck of the Antichrist, who everybody is afraid of. You know, even today, people are like, ooh, who's the Antichrist? It's going to be so scary when he's in charge. But yet, the remnant, every time he sends an army against it, they stand on the neck of that general or captain or whoever it is that comes against them. Every single time. Not some of the times. Every single time. Until the 3.5 years are over. Any thoughts or insight on any of that? Definitely put it below. I do want to take a moment and say, please consider being a patron of this channel. It greatly increases our ability to focus on this content and not kind of try to feed the algorithm of Google. It just frees us up. That link is below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, so never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.